In today's episode, we have with us Heidi Frost, who is the Director of Enrollment with Kelly Roach, and she'll be laying out the exact strategy that they've used to generate over 8 figures in business and what they teach their clients to do the same. So stick around. If you want to build a legitimate, profitable online business without shiny objects, without the hypey gimmicks, and without the stress and overwhelm, if you want to make more money without having to be present online all day, every day, pumping out content that nobody sees and hustling DMs to generate leads and sales, then this is the place for you. Welcome to the Digital Trailblazer podcast, your online business university, where you'll learn how ordinary people start from ground zero with no influence, no email list or audience to sell to, and no business or marketing experience, and go from working 9-to-5 jobs to building successful 6- and 7-figure online businesses and all the steps in between. Learn the strategies that worked and what didn't. Learn the mistakes that they made and how to avoid them, and then learn their plans for scaling their businesses and taking things to the next level. All so that you can build your business faster and easier and make more money without sacrificing the things that are important to you in your life. I'm your host, Leah Ray Getz, and with me is my husband, Todd. Now, let's get to it with today's guest. Hey, Digital Trailblazers. I'm super excited to have with us Heidi. Heidi, welcome to the show. Go ahead, kind of give a little background for our audience, and then we're going to dive really deep into the whole live launch strategy. But let them know a little bit more about you and what this is all done.
I love it. Thank you so much for having me. So I'd love to share, if it's okay, just a little bit of context of my background and kind of what led me to where I am today in my role with Kelly Roach at the Business Advisory, and kind of how I landed here. I think it helps just offer some context. So I spent a long time working in healthcare, actually. I was an occupational therapist for almost 18 years. So I spent a long time in the health and traditional healthcare in a role working in corporate run healthcare systems and working with different, insurance reimbursers and government regulations. And in my time in traditional healthcare, I really got frustrated that the care around the what my patients were getting was dictated not always by what's in their best interest, but by reimbursement, again, or regulation. So about 10 years ago, I took my clinical skills into my own hands and really developed my own health and wellness consulting practice. And this was when online coaching was just emerging into the market. And I saw so much opportunity there. So I built my own business from the ground up in about 2015, transitioned online. And, again, my background is I'm a clinician. So I didn't know anything about digital marketing or sales or building funnels or strategy. So I learned it all from the ground up, just working with different mentors and taking all the courses and a lot of what I'm sure many of your listeners have gone through to really understand how to build a business online. And through that process, I found out that I actually really love business strategy. And that's where I really wanted to be able to grow as part of a team. So I phased out my wellness consulting business and kind of transitioned into the business strategy world, and eventually found my way onto Kelly's team and have been with her for almost 5 years now, and just continuing to grow within the organization and love what we get to do with our clients every single day.
I love that. And I was a registered nurse. So in a very similar start, we got started in the online space and didn't have a clue on how to do anything, and had to hire a coach and consume courses, and then a lot of trial and error along the way. So yes, that is a good path forward. You learn a lot, because I think a lot of people find themselves in this digital space, and that's definitely not their background. That's not what they went to school for. Now, what is the live launch strategy? Like, just to kind of definition wise to get started with that.
Yeah, perfect question. So the live launch method is essentially a conversion event. So it's a conversion event where you invite a group of your ideal clients to come and join you. And typically these are virtual events. Come and join you for a virtual experience where they're going to learn, you're going to provide value and give them a little bit of a taste of what it's like to work with you, to be inside of your community. And then you're going to make an invitation for them to be able to work with you as a client on the back end. So it's essentially a conversion event or a sales experience where you can enroll in high volume at scale, build your brand in the process, and develop connection with your community all throughout.
So this live launch, what type of businesses does it really work for? Because I know that, our listeners, they may be doing anything from affiliate marketing to network marketing to selling their own courses, coaching programs, agencies, consulting agencies, things like that. are there certain businesses that it works really well for? And then on the other side, are there certain businesses that it doesn't work well for? And then as far as like price point, is there a certain price point that you want to shoot for as far as the offer at the end?
Yeah. So what I really love about the live launch method is that you can really design and adapt the strategy to align with any business model, really. I mean, we have clients that are in the coaching and consulting industry. We have some clients that are product based. We have some that are in the service based in terms of like done for you agency services, or even really niche markets like real estate or finance, or, you know, some really higher level professionals like doctors and attorneys. And essentially what we help them to do is identify how can we design, again, a live launch experience that aligns with the offer that they're going to be making on the back end. So that may look different depending on the business, depending on the industry, and depending on the offer that they're going to be making. But that's where it gets really fun, is that you can really help, but kind of reverse engineer by starting with the offer in mind and the ideal client that they're looking to attract. And then you build the live launch event around that. So it can look very different. You know, sometimes we'll have clients that are selling a high ticket service. It may be a 9-day event to sell into a 30K coaching program, for example. Or we may have some clients that are, maybe they're in like the finance space and they're going to be doing a live event, and it's a few $100 ticket that they can do a one-time masterclass to fill the room. So there's a wide range. And that's really the beauty of it, is that it's very flexible and you have the ability to adapt and model and mold it to meet the needs of the business model.
Okay. That's interesting. I have been through Kelly's live launch process. I registered for it and attended and saw the videos and basically funnel hacking her. So
yeah,
just
you're welcome
to. And it was, I've seen other people do live launches. I've seen other people do, challenges and things like that are very similar. What I saw was that with Kelly's, because she's, got a high ticket program that she was promoting at the end, it was very high touch. Like, I was really impressed with the level of professionalism and the touch points that she was putting in there, the emails, the text messages, everything else that went into it, I thought was just far above and beyond anything that I've ever seen before. So I saw how this could be used very effectively to sell a high ticket program. But why don't we start with that low ticket one? Because that was something that hadn't really occurred to me, was doing this in a shortened version in order to sell a lower ticket product. And then we can talk about the high ticket stuff first. But just for the sake of simplicity, when we do this as a one-day event, like, is it basically a webinar that we're doing, or is it like a 4-hour long thing? Like, how are you structuring this to make sales with a one-day event?
I think that's a great question. So for lower ticket and one-day event, it's, again, going back to really looking at the ideal client and understanding first, what is the experience need to look like for them to be able to get to a place where they can make a decision based on logic and emotion, so that they feel very confident in what they're making an investment in, even if it is a lower ticket. So sometimes that may be a 1-hour webinar. Sometimes it could look like potentially a half-day workshop. What I'll say, where the differentiator comes in, is really the most important part of any live launch, whether it's a 1-day or a 9-day or anything in between, is what happens in the pre-launch runway, what we call the pre-launch runway, and what happens before the actual workshop. It's interesting. This is the piece that most people miss when we're looking at how to optimize a live launch and how to really optimize the results of the strategy, is regardless if it, again, we decide to design it for a 1-hour webinar or a 9-day event, everything that happens leading up to that event is really what determines the outcome, which is interesting because it's often the missing piece that we see.
Yeah, and it makes sense, because when I think about webinars and how they've kind of evolved over the last several years, and the one thing that everybody complains about is the show rate has just plummeted, right? Show rates used to be 30-40% at times, and then they went down to like 20s, 30s. And now I think people who are doing live webinars, if they get high teens or low 20s, like, they're really happy with that. And a lot of people are, they're in the low teens as far as show rate for their webinars, which means if you get 100 people registered, you may only have 10 or 15 people actually showing up live, which is really disappointing when you put, all that time and effort and money into promoting something like that. So what does that runway look like? So how far out? Because I know for a live webinar, we would say, if we're going to run ads, we're only going to run ads maybe 3 or 4 days in advance. If we run them too soon, then people are just not going to show. Is that the same thing for your live launch, or because of all the things that you're doing before the event, can you promote it further out, or what are we doing to get people to show?
Yeah, such a great point. And I would completely agree. I've seen such an evolution of the live show up rate and what that looks like over the years. So yes, to your point, what differentiates the live launch model that we teach our clients is that the runway period could be as long as 4 weeks out before an event. Yes. And even, yes, for a one-day event. Yeah. And that's what makes it so powerful in terms of the results that you get on the back end. There's different phases of that runway though, right? And it's not all just promotion the entire time. It's very intentional the way that we approach the different phases. So what we might recommend, and again, every audience is different. So depending on how active, engaged, and all the different components that we're looking at, the first 2 weeks of that four-week runway could just be a nurture period. And a lot of times we'll recommend to release some type of high value opt-in to your audience for those first 2 weeks, just to start getting people excited and opting in. And you're building almost a pre-list for your workshop. So then when you transition into the registration period 2 weeks before the actual event, you already have a list built, and then you're just layering when you're actually promoting. So the opt-in period will feed right into the registration period, which feeds right into the actual event.
Okay, so you're spending like 2 weeks just audience building, not even promoting your event, but you're just building your email list, you're building, an engaged audience. And then 2 weeks out from the event, that's when you're getting people registered and say, hey, I got a big thing that's coming up. Or are you just kind of teasing it like that? Or are you saying exactly what it is? Well, like, how are you promoting that?
Most often we're saying exactly what it is. We're giving the audience a really clear understanding of what's in it for them. What are they going to get by exchanging their time and showing up for this experience and participating? We are really, really committed to providing value up front, right? So we are always offering, a lot of times our high value resources are probably things that we could sell. They're getting people incredible results. And just from going through the process of what we're putting out to our audience for free in advance. So by that point, people are so excited that they're like, wow, if I just followed these 5 steps in this SOP, and I'm already seeing this momentum, I'm definitely showing up for this workshop, whether it's an hour or a couple days, so I can learn more about how to optimize this and continue to grow it. So that's the philosophy behind it, is that by showing your audience and really demonstrating what you can help them to achieve, it just helps to increase that enthusiasm and that momentum leading up to the event.
Right. Now, the other thing I remember from Kelly's, her own live launch that she did for her program, was that it was incredibly high touch. Like as soon as I registered, I was getting emails, I was getting text messages. I think I may have even gotten a phone call, and it wasn't a sales call. Someone just, offering, seeing how I was doing, if I had any questions, offering maybe some free resources. So it was incredibly high touch, which was amazing, because I know, to make sales, like that relationship part, like making the connection and staying in front of people, like that is super important. It's no wonder to me that she's so successful with this, because, that's just what other people just don't do. Everyone else is so concerned about automating things and running things with AI and sending out pre-built email, and everything is, it's run by bots and automations, and people don't have that touch. And yeah, you can scale with that, but your conversions are going to suffer. So I love the fact that she's been able to scale this to the point where she has, with such a high touch process. So even when you're doing a one-day event, are you still doing all those high touch points with phone calls and texts and emails and all that? Or are you doing a smaller version of that?
Yeah, great question. So what you described and what you experienced was likely for one of our bigger, probably 9-day live launches, where we would be pitching and enrolling into a higher ticket offer, right? So it's a great example of high touch experience for high ticket offer on the back end, right? So to answer your question, a lot of times with our lower ticket offers, it's going to be higher volume most often, right? So there may be thousands of people going through the event. So it's not always possible to create that experience, right? If you don't have a big team. So with a lower ticket product, a lot of times we're doing that, but more at scale, right? So it's going to be a little bit more of the automation tools in place, but there's always still a human that people can access, whether it's high ticket, low ticket. So there's always a channel of communication to our team one way or another. But no, it's definitely a different experience in terms of the way that we're interacting with the audience during that pre-launch phase, which is exactly what you described, and even throughout the event. And that, so for lower ticket, most often it's going to be lower touch on a one-to-one concierge basis. For the higher ticket offers, typically it's going to be a higher touch experience with a one-to-one concierge going through the entire process from that moment that you register all the way through even a week after the event is over. We'll always have that, like with a high ticket, high touch experience, you'll have a one-to-one concierge from throughout the entire experience. With a lower ticket, there's going to be team members checking in, touching base. There's always someone that you can access, but it's much more higher volume, so it's more at scale.
And I'm glad you explained it that way, because I imagine that if you had constructed an offer that's only $200 or $300, the actual product itself is not going to have that high of touch delivery, right? So if you were to deliver really high touch to sell them, but then it dropped off as soon as they bought and they invested, I feel like people would probably think that that was a little bit of a bait and switch. So it makes sense that you would be more automated with a lower ticket offer, because it's more congruent with the offer itself. So as far as getting registrants, now, when we're doing high ticket, like you mentioned, we want to put more volume into it in order to generate the revenue, because we're selling lower ticket. How are you getting the registrants? Are you running paid ads? Are you relying on social media somehow? Are you doing collaborations or affiliates, or how are you promoting this to get the registrants that you need?
Yeah, well, all of the above are options for sure. But one thing in terms of our team, we definitely are utilizing all of those channels. So paid advertising, visibility exchanges, and then also organic. We're very big with organic, even on our internal team, with just building our own personal brands within the brand, doing our promoting it on our own social medias and within our database. So all of those are definitely strategies that we use to fill our live launches. But what I tell our clients, because that can sound overwhelming sometimes to people, so you don't have to do all of those all the time, but think about what are at least 2 or 3 methods that you can use, that you can commit to, so that you can consistently use those direct ways to get the registrations for your events. So for a lot of our clients, they do some balance between organic within their own in-database and social media followers, and potentially paid if they have that budget. And we're always encouraging them to do visibility exchanges or just getting in front of other audiences to be able to bring people in to their live launches.
Yeah. So as far as ads go, is it typically Facebook ads, or are there some other ad platforms that you're looking at?
Most of our clients are traditionally leveraging Facebook ads. They seem to be the ones that they're using. And you can, there's all different strategies, of course, when it comes to ads, but those typically are the ones that we're seeing perform best with direct to the workshops for the conversions.
Yeah. Okay. We kind of see the same thing on our side. Like, there's other places that we can go to get traffic, but it's typically, it lacks the volume, or it lacks the targeted audience. It's typically lacking something. But in Facebook is just the one place where we can go that we know that we can always get both. As far as organic, is there something that you're finding is working better than other things right now?
With the live launch, so one thing that I can explain and how the organic works really well with this model is that what we teach is this concept called launch cycling. So essentially, we teach the live launch method. As I explained, it could look a little bit different for every business model. But the one thing that we always encourage everybody that wants to use this as a mechanism to build their audience, build their brand, build their revenue, is to launch cycle. So what that means is that every 6 to 8 weeks, you're kind of going through the cycle that we talked about with your pre-launch promotion period, running your workshop, and then you have your follow-up phase. So to answer your question with the organic, what we're always doing is making sure that we're filling the top of the funnel, essentially bringing new people in every time we run an event. They go through the event, and then they're in our database now. So then you're cycling through these launches. When you get to the next pre-registration phase, you're bringing in more new leads through the channels and the strategies that we just talked about. And then this compound effect is happening, right? Every 6 to 8 weeks, you generate new leads, nurture them through the workshop. Anybody that doesn't become a client is now part of your ecosystem. So there's this compound effect as it relates to organic growth that's kind of a byproduct of launch cycling. So that's why I love that, the launch cycles and the lead generation kind of go hand in hand. So you're bringing new people in, you're running through your launches, you're nurturing them, establishing that know, like, and trust so quickly. Now they're part of your ecosystem. They keep coming back for launch after launch after launch. Some of them, they may come in and become a client their first time going through the experience. Other people, they may need to attend 3 or 4 launches. It's not uncommon at all. But then they become your next client. So the lead generation, the organic growth, and then the launch cycling as a sales system become, this very repetitious formula for growth from an organic perspective.
Yeah. I'm glad that you brought that up about even if people don't buy the first time, that doesn't mean that it's no forever. It just means no, not right now, right? And I think so many people miss that. They generate the lead, they make the offer, and it's a no. And it's like, oh, let's give up on that one. And it's like, that's money on the table. You're leaving money on the table. So when you're doing these live launches, if people are attending multiple times, are you doing the exact same presentation every time, or are you switching up and doing a different subject matter, or how do you do that? So, because I imagine, like, if they attended the launch once, would they really attend the exact same thing a second time?
Yes. Interestingly. Yes. We have had people attend our launches, as I said, multiple times. And so to answer your question, yes, we will repeat the same exact launch experience. If it's working well and we're getting a good response and good feedback and all the numbers look good, we will absolutely, and we teach our clients the same thing, repeat the same strategy. You build it once and you repeat it over and over again. The caveat to that is that every time you deliver, every launch is a little bit different. The way you tell your stories are a little bit different. The examples that you share, we always encourage to bring client testimonials in to share their stories. So the clients that you showcase might be different. So the experience itself is always a little bit different. And every time you might tweak it just a little bit. So maybe you do, a little bit of a different homework experience or a different resource that you share. But ultimately, the core content and the core assets for the business owner can remain the same, which makes it very repeatable in terms of being able to use the same landing pages and the same email copy. It's completely fine. We find that people give us feedback all the time saying, I'm starting to really, grasp these concepts now. I feel really interested and excited to put it into action. Sometimes it takes people a couple of times of repetition to hear something before they can truly see the value and understand how it can benefit.
Yeah. And I imagine that some people, when they register the first time, maybe they attend, if it's a multi-day event, maybe they attend the first day and then life gets busy and they drop off and then they miss their opportunity, right? And then maybe they register for the next one and they are able to attend more of the live launch of the days. Yeah, I definitely see how this could really be beneficial just to do the same thing over and over and over because, not only is it helping you because you can just reuse the same resources that you already built. And then all the work goes into the first one, and then second one, third one, every other consecutive one that you do is going to be so much easier because everything is already set up, right? As far as what you're actually doing inside the live launch, can you break that down for us? Like, obviously we have the goal in mind and we're kind of working backwards from the goal, but what are you actually covering or teaching inside of those training sessions that you're doing in the live launch?
Yeah. So what I always encourage my clients to do is to extract directly from your offer, right? Like, what is it that you're going to be teaching in terms of with your clients inside of your paid offer that you can pull out of that and give a similar experience to your audience for free, right? So you may teach, we often encourage everybody to identify 4 core pillars, right? So 4 core pillars that you can teach your audience. So you're teaching them something new, but I also encourage them to make it experiential, right? So that there's some level of interaction. So maybe it might be, just for example, a lot of times what we do is we teach people how to build a live launch during our live launch workshops. So we help them to identify what might your high value opt-in look like, right? How can you design that for your audience? What would your launch pillars be that you teach your audience? What are the launch dates that you're going to cycle through the year? And how can we plan those out and reverse engineer against your revenue goals? And we'll actually get people into action, planning all of this out on a high level, starting to get them to think about how this can work for them. So they have it all mapped out in terms of the pillars and the plan and the different pieces of how to put a conversion event together. And then obviously when we make the invitation for them to work with us as a client, they've got this framework that they're ready to put into action. So getting support with the strategy is an obvious next step for them. So it's thinking about the operating reality of your ideal client and what do they need first to be able to see the possibility that you can then offer deeper with them inside of your paid offer that you're going to be making the enrollment invitation for.
Okay. So you are just kind of taking like the overall goal of your offer. You're kind of giving them a high level view of every step in that.
In a lot of ways, yes, absolutely. You want it to align with what you're going to be offering them on the back end. So that may look different depending on what your offer looks like. How can you create an experience for your audience? So, and again, start to show them the value of what you're going to be doing with them, possibly get them thinking a little bit deeper about how this relates to them personally, the results that they'll be able to see, and then give them that both that education and that experience. So that the obvious next step is they're going to want to learn more how to get better, faster, deeper results with you inside of a paid opportunity.
So would this also work if you say like took a part of your program and just taught that in more detail? So for example, if like with us, we teach coaches and course creators how to build their businesses. And one of the first steps about that is, like you said, learning how to just generate leads with an opt-in and a lead magnet and a funnel. Would just teaching that first part and going into detail about that work, or would you still want to be very high level and cover more things rather than getting into the details about just one part of it?
You're going to have people at all different levels in your audience, right? So finding that balance between what is going to be able to give enough value without overwhelming people, right? So staying at a level where if you think about, and I always say, when you're thinking about your qualifying factors for your offer, when you think about what are those minimum requirements in terms of qualification, you want to make sure that the people that are in your audience that meet those minimum requirements are not going to be overwhelmed by what you're teaching, right? So getting too in-depth, especially if there's tech or there's detail with integrations and things that not everybody in the audience might be familiar with, I would say keep it high level and keep it conceptual. Right, get them thinking is what we want to do, is even thinking about the concepts that they might be able to do with their offer, or how they can solve a problem, or how they can, get people results, and starting to really think about what they're doing within their business, maybe staying away from the too many things that could be very technical or overwhelming if someone doesn't have a previous frame of reference when it comes to that.
Right. I think that's an excellent point that you've just brought up now. Well, and this is what I think Russell Brunson hammers this home all the time about when people do webinars. Like one of the biggest mistakes they make is that they get too heavy into the details and into the weeds of things. And all it does is it makes people feel like they can't do it because, like you said, they get overwhelmed. It's too technical. It's going into things that are just too complicated, and it scares them off rather than showing them the possibility, just helping them plan things out. And like you said, just inspiring them that they can do this. Because that's really what they need at that point. So I love that you brought that up because that's so important. Now, when we're doing this over multiple days with a higher ticket offer, what are the changes or what are the differences that we're going to see between that and the low ticket offer that we just went through?
It's interesting because the experience itself is not very different for high ticket versus low ticket. It may be in terms of the time frame, because for a higher ticket offer, we know it's going to take a little bit more time to establish that know, like, and trust to make a higher ticket buying decision. So that might be different. But a lot of what we do in terms of the structure of the events, where we lead with the value, we're teaching, we're providing some level of education and experience. And then we're always showcasing client stories too. That's one thing that is true at any level, whether we're going to be enrolling into a lower ticket offer or a higher ticket offer. We're always bringing in clients to share their experience, because from the perspective of the audience, again, they know that we're going to tell them how amazing everything that we're teaching them is, right? And how it's going to be the thing that's going to get them the results that they're looking for. But it's very different when they hear from someone who is a client who was not long ago, just like them, right? And they share their perspective and they share, what it was like before working with us as a client, what the experience has been like and the results that they've been able to get and what's possible for them now. So we're always bringing in clients to share their stories because that really helps to shift the emotional belief of the audience members and helps them to see the possibility in themselves. And then, of course, we're making the invitation on the back end. So it's typically the framework of any live launch is teach, educate, lead with service and value, and then bring on clients to share their experience with the audience and make the invitation to enroll with you.
And that is one of the things that really stuck out to me about Kelly's live launch that I attended was the testimonials that were coming in every day and the previous clients. Now, what she did, if I remember right, was she actually had them come on live. I imagine coordinating that can be kind of a hassle. Does it have to be live, or can you have like pre-recorded interviews or test, case studies and things like that you deliver?
It's a great question. And I will say we've tested both. I personally prefer live because there's an energy about the launch event that you can't get the same experience out of a pre-recorded video and what we also are very intentional about is we have whatever client we're bringing on, we have their individual strategist be the one to interview them during the live experience. So there's a connection there. There's a relationship there that it's more about what's not said that is important for the audience to see. How deeply we know our clients, how much we really relate to each other and have fun with them and really get to know them as people. And I think that above anything is more important than even the client story that they're sharing is for the audience members, I should say, to see the connection between our clients and the team that they work with.
Right. Yeah. Now, for people who are maybe just beginning their online business and they haven't had a lot of clients or customers yet, and they maybe don't have all those testimonials or they don't have people that are able to come on and give do an interview like that, does this still work, or can you replace those testimonials with something else that is maybe somewhat effective, or how do you manage that when you don't have those testimonials?
Yes, absolutely. So I would say if you have anybody that you've helped in any capacity with the solution that you help your clients to get that can come on and share their experience, even if they did not pay you for the service. Like, so for example, if we have clients that are in the fitness industry and maybe they're just getting started and they have their best friend that they took through as a beta test for their 12-week program, that person could absolutely come on and share their story and experience. As long as there's someone that can give their testimonial and share their experience working with you in any capacity, even if it wasn't in, a paid engagement, that's perfectly fine. And then I would say too, we always do recommend, as I said, I feel like there's so much power in those testimonials. So that's the first choice for sure. But you can also share case studies of clients that you've worked with, the results that they've been able to get. But there's nothing better than people coming on to share that story. So even if it was in I've even had clients that have shifted their avatar or changed their offer or their niche a little bit, but they have amazing client testimonials from what they were previously doing. So I encourage them, bring the client on just to share what it was like working with you, give you a character testimonial as someone who was their accountability support, who was their coach. It doesn't have to be about the exact offer that you're selling at that moment in time.
Now, the other thing that kind of sticks out to me, like I mentioned before, was the level of high touch interactions that I had with the team. Now, for someone who's maybe wanting to get going with the strategy and they don't have a team in place, it's just them, they're solopreneur. How do they manage that? Can they do a scaled back version of that? Or are we really encouraging them to, make all those phone calls and do all those touch points, day after day? How labor intensive is it for someone to do this on their own?
Yes, no, I get this question all the time, and it's such a great question because I think it's so possible for a solopreneur. So many of our clients start out as solopreneurs that are using the live launch as a way to grow their business and then reinvest into a team. So absolutely, solopreneurs can do a version of the live launch. And again, it may look a little bit different in terms of the way that we develop it so that they're able to execute on it. So I think the biggest thing that I always point out is how can we create an experience for your audience that is high touch, but that we're also utilizing what we have and being intentional with who you're connecting with and who you're taking the time to create those custom touch points for, so that it is possible for you to operate as a solopreneur, but also with intention. So a lot of strategies that we can implement for solopreneurs is to help them to identify who are the most qualified leads coming through your live launch experience. And we can do this through a lot of different ways, but then that helps segment down a group of a few hundred people to maybe there's, your top 50 that you want to take that time to do those personal touch points for, and to make sure that you're making that individual connection with, so that you can bring them into a closer relationship with you and then have more opportunity for conversion. So it's about operating intentionally, making sure that we're segmenting the audience early on and pre-qualifying, so that as a solopreneur, you're really spending your time with the people that you've identified as the highest quality, highest qualified leads. So there's going to be more opportunity there. One thing I'll say on the back end of that, though, is that we never prejudge anybody that comes in and registers, right? So we want to provide an exceptional experience for everybody that registers and goes through your live launch. And you can absolutely do that at scale as a solopreneur, because you'll always have people that pop up and become your next clients that you may never have had an interaction with. That's the fun and the beauty of it, is that, you might have your list of your top qualified leads, but then you have all these other people that start to emerge and start to come out and get on your calendar or asking questions about how to work with you just from going through that live launch experience. So there's a lot of ways that solopreneurs can successfully execute this experience for sure. And one other thing that I might say, just based on what we were just talking about in terms of pre-qualifying and really understanding who's in your audience when you're going through a live launch experience, but also, the one thing that we found so often with running our own launches and working with clients through launches is a lot of times the most qualified buyers are the quietest buyers, right? So I always encourage everybody to never, as I said, never prejudge, never count anybody out until you have an absolute confident, reason that they're not interested in what you're doing. But there's value and there's power in having people go through your launches and just observing what you're doing, observing the experience. A lot of times, that I can tell you, every time we have, our live launches, we'll have people that pop up. We've never connected with them, even with every attempt that you've seen us make to reach out. And then they're interested in working with us just from observing the experience or even watching the replays. So that's the benefit in being able to have more of a passive enrollment strategy by just getting your live launch visible to as many people in your audience as possible.
Yeah. And I think you're right about the people who are just kind of lurking in the background, because we've heard that from multiple people, and we've also experienced it ourselves, is that, the people who are really just, they get on a call and they've got the credit card in hand and they've already made a decision, right? And they're good to go. A lot of times, those are the people that we've never seen engage on a single post, that, that we've never seen them do much of anything as far as engaging, commenting, all those things that we try to get people to do. They're not doing that, but suddenly they just jump on a call and they're ready to buy and join. And I think that's what we've seen so many times, is that it's those people lurking in the background that are like that. Right.
That's right. Exactly. So that's why, for solopreneurs, there's so much opportunity because it's visibility for you, and it's just building that connection with your audience. And that's the fun part, is that you never really know who's watching. And then, there's that one day that they reach out and they become your next client, because you've done the work, you've put in the time, you've put in the energy, you've created the content, provided the live launch experience. And then that's sometimes all they need to be able to make that decision.
Awesome, Heidi. This has been an amazing conversation. We really appreciate all the insights and tips and nuggets that you've provided for our audience. If they want to learn more about this process or what's going on within your organization, where should they head?
Yeah, I would say the best way is to just connect with me on social media. I'm active on Facebook. Heidi Frost is my Facebook profile. And then I'm also very active on LinkedIn. So that's the best place. We always have things going on, free workshops, free resources. So connect with me on social, send me a DM. I'm happy to send over some resources or just answer any questions that anyone might have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Heidi.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Digital Trailblazer podcast. For show notes and information about today's guest, head to digitaltrailblazer.com. Now, if you love this episode, if you got some value, make sure you leave us a review and subscribe. And be sure to share this episode with anyone you know who could use help to build their business. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.